Yes, definitely. I think in the whole renewable energy financing, there is a major shift from the previous period where it was incentivized directly by each and every state through the so-called feed-in tariff systems, which means that there were a guaranteed period of offtake. There was a state-owned offtaker, and then the developer was in a position that for the period of the loan, if they have debt financing in the financing structure, for the tenor of the loan, they will be eligible for the selling the entire generated electricity to the state-owned offtaker for a predefined pricing. That was the previous, let's say, setup and system approach. And later on, started to be shifting towards more market conditions. And now we are in the period where more market conditions are applied. What does it mean? It means that instead of the off-takers from the state-owned entities, now you can conclude a PPA, a so-called PPA, so power purchase agreement, with any private off-taker who is willing to purchase the electricity, the green electricity that you generate. This is in many aspects, this is a paradigm change, primarily because the tenors are different. So in the previous regime, there were like very frequently 12-year tenors for the offtake agreement. Meanwhile, in the current environment for the PPAs, 3 to 5 year agreements are the most common ones, but definitely it does not go beyond 5 years. That is the current setup everywhere. And on the other hand, meanwhile, in the past, you have been facing with state-owned off-takers, so the payment or performance risk in that sense that you will get the payment for the sold electricity was a very moderate risk. Now there is a kind of an off-taker risk from a private enterprise point of view that they not necessarily be in a position for 3 to 5 years from now to pay for the purchased electricity. And that's an issue also from the banking sector point of view, because they need to somehow incorporate into their assumptions and risk appetite whether they are willing to go with such financing structures. Yes, definitely there is in terms of the global landscape, we talk about like very mixed setups. I would say the local landscape is specific in a manner that the countries in the region, Central Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe region, are less wealthy countries. So their GDP per capita is 1/3, 1/4 of some of the Western European, and not even talking about other developed countries, GDP per capita. So their development and financial position in terms of the economy are less progressed. What does it mean? It means that they probably have limited capacities for financing entirely the transition. Whereas in other countries in Western Europe, the setup is slightly different. They can afford spending more amounts and more amount of money on the transition. There's one more aspect, which is also regional specific, that the carbon intensity is quite high in the region. So we have in our installed capacities in many of the regional countries, quite high portion of coal power plants, meaning that their emission is much higher. So the expected reduction is way higher. It gives an additional or puts an additional burden on these economies. And last but not least, I should also highlight that this transition is somehow, I mean, it relies on many stakeholders, and the commitment should also be strong from the state perspective that they really want to facilitate that change in terms of the legislative background. Adopting EU standards for the non-EU member countries and creating a market environment which is similar to the EU environment, both legislation-wise and the entire setup. We started building up our ESG strategy in a very conscious manner. So we implemented all the standards that are relevant and applicable for us in terms of the EBA guidelines, in terms of loan origination and monitoring. And we built up the entire process in that manner. But we wanted to put an equally high emphasis on the S&G components. And we have many programs that we have launched or expanded, which are focusing on these S&G components. I would highlight maybe a few of those. We have the Generator Zero program, where we are supporting startups and small and medium enterprises that are focusing on the sustainability, and the focus is in green economy. And that is one pillar which is very important for us. Another pillar is that we have the OTP Village program, where we are trying to onboard our employees to get more involved in CSR activities and facilitate the awareness on our employee level as well, and supporting, of course, certain goals which are as well important from the society point of view. We have another program where we have established the register for civil society organizations, and OTP Banka Srbija was the one establishing it, which was a very, let's say, structured approach towards maintaining a proper database for these organizations. And last but not least, we are dedicated sponsors of the Olympic Committee in Serbia, supporting also other aspects of the society with that.